Hello and welcome to News, Games, and More. Plenty to talk about today, but first we wanted to shout out our charity efforts. All summer of gaming, IGN is asking you to donate to the Bail Project and the World Health Organization by clicking on the links in the description in your video player or by heading to donations.ign.com. The Bail Project is a nonprofit that pays bail for people in need, reuniting families and restoring the presumption of innocence in support of Black Lives Matter. The COVID-19 Response Fund is dedicated to studying, tracking, and combating the coronavirus pandemic. And by donating, you'll have a chance to win IGN gift cards, codes for games, and swag from companies like id and Bethesda. Anyone who gives more than $50 will also have a shot at winning a Summer of Gaming custom Xbox One X. That's it right there. It's beautiful. It's one of a kind. Like literally, I haven't seen this thing, and I work at IGN. I don't even get to touch it or hold it. That's all you. That's going to be you to win. We've already generated over $34,000 in donations for these two great charities, so keep them coming. Let's keep rolling those in. Keep supporting those causes. Two causes I personally really believe in, and obviously the whole company does at large. So before we get any further, I also want to say, because we're doing housekeeping stuff here, you can download the TikTok app, follow IGN, and search IGN Summer of Gaming hashtag for even more bonus gameplay clips, news, exclusives, and originals, or leave us a Yappa video comment in the comment section of any article on IGN.com, and your Yap could wind up on the stream. Did you ever think you would hear a sentence like that? That sounds like nonsense words. Here to help me with more nonsense words are my good friends, Janet Garcia, Seth Macy, and Jonathan Dornbush. Hello, friends.
Hello, friend.
Hi, Durno. I think you're muted right now, but we're going to get you right back in here because I love your voice.
Hello,
and it's
how's it going?
To hear it. I think you're faking it.
Can you hear me now?
I actually can't hear any of you. What a
Can't
nightmare.
hear me at
all of this is horrible. No, there you guys are.
Okay.
Excellent. Well, obviously, this has been a gigantic week for video games, as it's been all summer long, I think. And that's not just because of IGN Summer of Gaming, but because E3 and every other trade show exploded into a million smithereens that have scattered all over the wastelands of 2020. And specifically, that means good news for us, because every single day we get like what seems like another big video drop or press conference or reveal, exclusive worldwide gameplay reveal, all that fun stuff. And today we got
was far less than what we were shown. It was a lot.
Yeah,
they really
I felt very similar. Janet, what about you?
Yeah, they really laid out a lot of what we can concretely expect from the game, which I know was a big point of contention leading up to this event. Breaking down story, who the big bad is, and kind of, the main focus was showing that Thor mission and kind of saying, so this is an example of how the world's going to be kind of orchestrated and how missions are going to carry out. So it being sort of, I guess the through line is Kamala Khan's mission towards finding out the truth and kind of bringing the truth to light and uniting the Avengers is essentially what I got from it. Correct me if I'm wrong. And then that will be like also done through these character missions from different characters as you sort of slowly build out that team. And then we got like close-up gameplay footage of what it's like to play as Thor and seeing that in action, which I think was a better indicator than what we've seen before, which was a little bit more of like opening sequence and kind of something that looks cinematic, but didn't really speak to what we could expect as players once the game launches. So it was nice to get that deep dive and finally see what can we really expect from this game.
Jonathan, I know you're a gigantic Avengers fan, and I know that the sort of pulse on this game in general has been, I would say, like kind of tepid interest, leaning into cautious optimism. But it feels like every time we see a little bit more of it, people get a little bit more excited. Where are you as a whole on Square-Enix's Avengers game?
Yeah, so I've always been very cautiously optimistic because a lot of the, I would say, missteps, I guess, around the reveal felt more so of how they packaged and delivered the reveals than what the game actually was going to be. And I kind of wish this had been the first reveal, because I do think this lays out so clearly and so succinctly a lot of the answers to the questions we had back at E3 last year that they talked around a bit. And I get that they didn't want to show everything at the reveal, but I do think it really would have helped, because at the end of the day, there is a lot of different parts coming together here. But Crystal Dynamics, the team behind this, they made the Tomb Raider reboot and Rise of the Tomb Raider, and those are really, really great action games. So like as a team, I have faith in them to deliver a really great project. And given what Marvel Games did in collaboration with Insomniac, my hope has always been this could still deliver on a really strong front, despite those early sort of missteps in the marketing messaging. So this presentation in general, I think, did a really, really great job of giving you a full understanding of what the game is. And I actually, as part of our IGN First for this coming month, got to play that Thor level as well as a Kamala Khan level that led up to it. So I have a better understanding than I definitely did a few months back. And I wish we would get even more, because I do think it's one of those things where I can kind of get what the game's going to be for 20 minutes, but I can't wait to know what it's going to be for, 10 hours.
Right.
Yeah, I'm curious, Jonathan, how did you feel like Thor controlled? Because from just watching this, I definitely have more of a tepid feeling towards this game. It's never really looked that appealing to me. The gameplay just seems very dry, and I think the packaging is very formulaic in a way that can be fine, but only if the gameplay really delivers. So from just watching it on screen, I was a little bit thrown by some of the camera choices. I thought that Thor looked both floaty and clunky all at once. So I'd love to hear from you how it actually felt. Like there's people in my mentions talking about like it looked like the levitation kind of felt like it might be control-y, but maybe not pull off what Control did. Like I'm curious as to what are some examples of what this felt like when you really went hands-on with it.
For sure. So yeah, on the Thor front, and I could talk about him and Kamala. Thor feels, I think the best analog is Kratos in God of War if he could fly. Because
I'm into that.
Mjolnir essentially, his hammer acts like the Leviathan acts, and that's not a huge mistake, because I believe the lead combat designer, I don't want to get his job title too wrong, but Vince Napoli, who I've interviewed and you'll hear more from during IGN First, was one of the combat designers on God of War, and was responsible for helping bring the Leviathan axe to life. So there's definitely that through line in there. I would say, to best describe the combat scenario, and sorry, I'm going to go on for a little bit, but basically the setup of the combat is kind of the basic Arkham style that So there's a light attack, a heavy attack, and a dodge at the base. So that's kind of what you can expect from every character. But from there, they all have a ton of different moves that take advantage of each different hero. The team basically thought about each heroes as if they were the protagonist of their own game. So there's not really like a sameness between all 5 or 6 of them, other than that basic through line. So with Thor, the way that he works is you can both use Mjolnir close up, you can throw it, you can use melee attacks. Like once you've thrown Mjolnir, you don't need to call it back immediately. You can still use his fists and everything. Basically, his flying mechanic is you jump up and then kind of press what would be the dash button to start hovering, or double jump, I believe, to start hovering. And then you press the dash button and then he starts flying. And so basically from there, you can control him and fly him around. It definitely, I will say, took me a little bit to get the hang of it. I played through Thor's level twice, and I definitely was not that adept at it at the beginning. But I would say that, definitely by the start of the second playthrough, which was my second time controlling Thor, I was starting to get the hang of it. And what I really like is that there are a lot of options that you have at play, because the way this game is built is really that there are really in-depth skill trees that let you add a lot more hero abilities, add a lot more customization to your characters. It's a little close to, I think, the Borderlands skill trees, and essentially lets you kind of pick from there how you want to build out these heroes. Sorry, that was a lot.
No, I was going to say, never hesitate to go into great detail about a game that you've played and the rest of us haven't, because we're all going to be sitting here being like, I don't know, it might be heavy, it might be chunky, it might be smooth, and you're like, no, trust me, here's how it goes.
No, and it is one of those things where, like, and talking to the devs, and I tried to test this out in my gameplay, you can play this game just button mashing. Like, if you want to just kind of spam the buttons and go crazy, you can do that. I would say some of the camera choices in the War Table, I don't think necessarily showed off the best bits of Thor's combat, because some of my favorite stuff, I played him primarily in two different ways as I filled out his skill trees. The first way was I was hanging back, more floating and flying and hovering around the area and kind of throwing off Mjolnir, and I souped up the hammer in a way so that when I threw it, it would do area of effect attacks and sort of damage a few enemies at once, and imbued it with a bit more lightning powers that he has. The other Thor build that I did essentially was one that was more hands-on and close combat focus. So his big thing, like his big main heroic power, is he can call in the lightning Odin force, and I built out his abilities so that when he is in hand-to-hand combat, he's more imbued with his Odin Force power. And essentially, I started fighting really close up with a lot of enemies, no matter their scale. And it was kind of that scene in Thor Ragnarok that's like the Led Zeppelin Immigrant Song scene, and basically was just playing like that version of Thor. And so what I really liked was that both of those gameplay styles were valid and both worked in the scenario. I would say the thing about the War Table is it's trying to, I think, almost show all of the builds at once. Like it's giving you a bit of close-up Thor and far-ranging Thor and more supportive Thor and all these different Thors, whereas you as the player will get to kind of hone in on what you enjoy most about the character.
So one of the things I wanted to sort of ask you is, and I think ask the whole group here, is that I think one of the things people were most apprehensive about this game from the jump is that it feels like it's biting off a lot. If you look at the best, I would say argue the best superhero video game of the last decade was the Spider-Man game on PS4. And I would argue that that's because it hyper-focused on one character's mechanics specifically. And I would also argue that it was at its weakest when it didn't let you play as that character. And so I think that this game has the potential of only sort of being as strong as its strongest characters, but also being as weak as its weakest characters. Do you think that there's going to be some characters in this game that maybe people just don't really bother with entirely because they don't feel as good as the other ones, or they feel overpowered or broken?
At least from everything that I've seen with the game, I think what will end up happening is, because obviously there's going to be future characters coming down the pipeline as free DLC, and what the team has said is that there's not like classes of characters. So it's not like we're going to get 6 different Hulk type characters. Like each character is being considered to be built differently. So there probably will inevitably be characters that fell by the wayside. But one interesting thing, and we'll have a bit more coverage because we're essentially going to dive deeper into each of the heroes. The first hero that they worked out and figured out the combat for was actually Black Widow, which I think a lot of people have been like, oh, well, she's the most human character. She doesn't necessarily have a crazy suit of armor or, godlike powers. She's a bit more grounded and the most human character, but they actually really tried to figure out her mechanics first, and then went from there with all the different characters. So I think it'll be player based. I think you'll really gravitate toward what your play styles want to be more, and hopefully there will be enough interest for each type of hero out there. And I'm sure they'll be able to respond if there isn't.
All right. Well, we are going to take a quick break. And when we get back, I want to read a couple comments from IGN users about this game. And I also want to pick the brains of Seth and Janet to find out what they think this game might start interfacing with review-wise, because it's on its 3rd release date. And like I said, it's might be only as strong as its strongest characters. And also the two of them are generally brutally honest about stuff. And I want to pick their brains. But first, we're going to take a quick break. So we will be back with more news, games, and more right after this.
By the Army National Guard, working in our communities throughout the COVID pandemic to deliver food, build hospitals, and more. Go to nationalguard.com/esports for more info. And by Fuser, who will be partying with us all summer long.
I've got some big news. The bank finally came through, and I'm holding the keys to a brand new.
The next generation of video gaming is on the horizon, and IGN is here to bring you the latest PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series X news and analysis in our new weekly show, Next Gen Console Watch 2020. 2020. We'll bring on the experts to discuss and analyze all the latest developments around these new consoles. From frame rates, services, features, peripherals, and even all the new tech jargon, Next Gen Console Watch 2020 will keep you up to speed on everything leading up to the next generation of gaming. Join us every Friday for a new episode.
Not only is IGN the world's biggest media brand for games and entertainment, but we also have a team of some of the world's biggest fans of your favorite franchises. From breaking news and exclusives, never-before-seen looks at movies and games, to reviews, let's plays, and live streams, IGN brings you all the coverage you need, no matter where you are. IGN, the #1 source for all games and entertainment fans worldwide.
Everybody loves watching a speedrun of their favorite game. But what if you got the opportunity to peek into the minds of the developers while they watch their games getting completely wrecked? That's exactly what happens in every episode of Game Devs React to Speedruns.
Yeah, you can do that. Oh my god!
We invite you to ride along with the developers as they react to, question, and enjoy some of the most skilled players exploiting and speeding through a game it took years of their life to create. Join us every Saturday for a new episode.
Hey there! Do you have opinions on games, movies, TV, or other weird stuff on the internet? You can take part in our new show, Power Ranking, where you can vote on all your favorite things on the internet. Do it now! Do it! Just go! Vote! Go vote!
News, games, and more is IGN's live news show every day of the week that covers all the day's news about games, movies, comics, and of course more. This is our daily live show that takes a rotating cast of IGN talent going over all the latest news of the day while taking live questions and comments from chat. We're live every Monday through Friday at 4 p.m. Pacific, 7 p.m. Eastern. See you there. Oh, hello, and welcome back to News, Games, and More. I'm Brian Altano. With me is Jonathan Dornbush, Seth Macy, and Janet Garcia. We were talking a bit about Square Enix's Avengers game, which we got a pretty deep dive on this morning. This is a game that has been delayed a few times, and so I wanted to pick your brains, specifically Janet and Seth, because I know both of you have reviewed games in the past. Jonathan, you have too, but I let you talk a lot before, and now you're in the corner for a while. What do you like? I know it's impossible to predict sort of critically what this game is going to receive when it announces or reveals releases across the board. What do you guys think this is going to end up getting on, say, Metacritic?
Critics reviews or user reviews, because those are two different animals.
Okay, yeah, I mean, I'd be happy to hear both, actually.
Oh, geez. I think the Metacritic will be a 74.
Okay, that's kind of where I'm hovering too.
Yeah. And I think the user reviews will be... Oh, I'm curious as to what Marvel Alliance got, because I know obviously it's like totally apples and oranges, but that's a game that I didn't personally gravitate towards at all, because I just felt I had like a lot of issues with it. But I feel like it was pretty well received, so I kind of predict this game kind of falling in that same line. I would be surprised if it's a game I end up liking, just because from what we've seen so far and what we saw today, it seems very like 3D beat 'em up-y, which can be fine, but I worry that, well, though the tool set is kind of diverse, I think it'll be I think because they're designing so generalized, which can have good things to it, it will lack a certain feeling of uniqueness for the characters and kind of make it feel like not so much like, to speak to Brian's point, where it's like the best character will be like the high point of the game. I think it'll be more like you'll feel kind of the same about all of them, and I think that can actually be negative if they're not specialized. It might make everything feel kind of like, okay, well, what are we doing here? It strikes me as like a very, like, when I think of what a video game is, this is what comes to mind. It's like, we're flying, we're fighting, we're doing a mission, we're jumping in very like overtly and then jumping out very overtly.
Yep.
I think it's a lot of moving parts. And I think even Marvel movies themselves have struggled and grown into being able to do a really good Marvel movie where it feels meaningful and like all the threads are coming together. I think trying to do that with a game mechanically, one, poses a lot of challenges, and two, just based on what I see, I don't really think that they're going to pull it all together in a way that feels amazing. I think it could be a good game, but from what I see, it will kind of land more of okay to me just based on what I've seen. Like I said, until we go hands on with the full product as well, we're not really going to be. We're just kind of speculating, but that's most of what we do is speculate on stuff. So yeah.
I mean, honestly, that almost sounded like a full review. So that's
there you go. That's the verdict.
So,
it's the only part people read anyway. So,
well, now that we're reviewing games that aren't out yet, Janet gave the Metacritic a 74. No, she didn't give Metacritic a 74. Although that's probably what I would give that website. Yeah, Mr. Critic himself. I always called her Megan Critic, like it's just one woman that does all the reviews, and also Robert Tomatoes. They're married, by the way. Seth Macy, what is your prediction on the Metacritic for this?
I think this is like a 65 Metacritic. I just don't know. Something just doesn't feel right to me about
really
it.
Quick, Marvel Ultimate Alliance got a 73 on Metacritic.
Okay. Yeah, I mean that's fine. I think it's I think it's also it's a matter of the microtransaction stuff, how much that comes into play, how many sort of nefarious tendrils tickle their way into this thing, because that skews the user reviews in wildly different directions. Lord Cree left a comment on IGN, and he says they say the co-op looks fun as hell. So honestly, maybe it just comes down to this being a really fun co-op game. Ultimate Alliance did that really well, and honestly, that was a fun sort of party game to play. We also have a. What were you gonna say?
I said, what's gonna happen is any forums on Reddit where people are trying to group up, it's going to be hey, need a Black Widow, looking for Black Widow. Hey, we need a Black Widow, because I don't think anybody's going to be playing as the assassin lady from Russia. Well, you got people who can fly and a guy who turns green and can punch holes into the sun.
Yeah, but she's got that spider explosive thing.
But then there's a guy who actually is a Spider-Man in the Marvel universe. So,
but not yet in this.
Not yet in this. They're still working out those rights.
Just on the microtransaction note, I do think that might sway the user reviews in their benefit, just because they've really been pretty specific about promising new heroes, new regions, all the actual mechanical stuff is going to be free going forward.
Which is very good to hear. Yeah, I think I think that's what's going to keep people hooked, honestly, because that's a big part of that loop. I have a tough time sort of guessing where this is going to go, because I'm one of those people that saw a game like Destiny and played a few hours and I was like, not for me. And then IGN has a long running podcast dedicated to it, which I never would have predicted playing that game to begin with. So, but anyway, we have lots of games to talk about today, including Halo Infinite. But first, if you are just joining us, make sure to check us out on TikTok for some bonus Summer of Gaming content, and consider giving to one of our two charities, the Bail Project or the World Health Organization's COVID-19 Response Fund. Go to donate.ign.com or click any of the links in the video description and do that. We want to keep those numbers up all summer. Good causes right there. Let's make the world a better place. Halo Infinite. Anyone a fan? Today we got the teaser video, which was not a ton to look at, but enough to get people going. Seth, what's your history with Halo?
Halo 3 was probably my most played Xbox 360 game. That was the game that made me realize video games are different now. This is a real generational leap. And I used to play it with my friend all the time on our crappy 1 megabit per second, basically dial up speeds. I'll tell you what, my wife and I, when we were first married, we co-opted the original Halo on my original Xbox. So
that is beautiful.
It's got a special place. It is a beautiful thing. And and my kids also are super into it. If my son were here, he could tell us the entire backstory of every character and race and planet in the universe. So,
Seth, I've said this repeatedly on multiple shows now that I've been working with you all summer remotely, but I do truly believe that your son should replace you at work and take your job. No, I love
that.
You.
Would
You're
be
great.
A huge time saver for me.
That's true. Some backstory on this, obviously. Yep. The teaser confirmed that the Banished will be part of the game, and the Banished are a mercenary organization set up after the rebellion in the Covenant Empire, the alien antagonists in the Halo series. They're largely made up of, I'm going to screw this name up, Jiralhane, better known as brutes to humanity, but also count many of the Covenant races among their ranks, including the Grunts, Elites, and Hunters. The Banished featured as one of the two main playable races in Halo Wars alongside the human UNSC, and so the plot of Halo Wars 2 may have impact or reference by Halo Infinite. So this was a video of an audio teaser. Really, that's a lot of words I use to describe what is it. It is a short film of sound waves and not even the transformer. But there's some stuff in here. There's some stuff in here that we could dig into. Janet, are you a Halo person?
Generally, I'd answer that question as no, but I do have a background in Halo in the sense that I have played the first game and a little bit of the second game. I had co-opted it because I got it when I got my Xbox One. It came with like the Halo trilogy, I guess, or whatever. And me and my friend played it. He had played it like a million times, so he knew literally every turn, had the game basically memorized. We played through that. It was pretty fun. It definitely was. I don't know. It was a unique experience. It's not really the type of game I normally play. Though I will say that we turned on the, like, I don't know if you call it a mode or what you'd refer to it as, but Grunt Birthday Party, where when you get the headshot on the grunts, it goes, yay, and then there's confetti explodes everywhere.
Yay.
And that's like one of the best features of any game in all of gaming history. So that's all I have to say on that. Grunt Birthday Party was cool. I am kind of curious about Halo Infinite, just in that, like, it's going to be a huge deal, and I kind of want to be part of that conversation. So we'll see if I end up jumping in. I don't know if it'd be weird to, versus like, and there's always, story has always played a big role in Halo, but I also don't really remember much about the story. I was just kind of there for the action and the ride, so I'm not sure if I would feel out of the loop jumping back in without having like dug more into the lore. But I'm curious to see where the franchise has come since its beginning.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think any sort of long-running series like this that doesn't necessarily sort of Assassin's Creed it and come up with a new story every few years, or like something like what Zelda does, constantly has to walk that sort of balance beam of servicing longtime fans and introducing brand new players who never really messed with the franchise entirely. And considering this is going to be a day and date with the Xbox Series X launching, I think that could be a huge deal. Jonathan, how do you think that this will sort of connect with people, considering it's essentially launching with Game Pass and having what I imagine will be at least a few weeks of Game Pass free with the Series X will make it like kind of a weird pack-in game. And you and I host a PlayStation show together, and we're sort of guessing what we'll be playing on day one. This is sort of a guarantee. Do you think this is going to be like a gigantic deal and a huge system seller, even though it'll be working across multiple Xbox platforms?
I mean, I think it's going to come down to how good it is, because the Halo series is at a really weird point. I think the launch of Halo Infinite, and I know it's a really like grandiose thing to say, but I do think it is one of the most important like Xbox first party launches ever in the history of Xbox, because I do really think it's going to come down to like Microsoft has been so associated with Halo since the launch of the original Xbox, rightly so. And, the series in the past couple iterations hasn't been as beloved as the original Halo trilogy. Halo 5's multiplayer was great, and it had a lot of really great stuff in there, but the campaign really fell apart for a lot of people. So this game needs to come back and win over the people who feel like Halo's story has gone astray, but also be that hook for multiplayer that wants to keep people invested in Game Pass, like you're saying, or just the Xbox ecosystem in general. So I think they have to do something really special. And obviously, like, the multiplayer has always been great in the series. I've always loved it. Halo 2 multiplayer, I think, is the most I've ever played of a multiplayer game. But they really need to do something to keep people hooked with this, especially at that launch.
All right, well, that is just a little brief look at a video of an audio of Halo Infinite, which will undoubtedly be one of the biggest games of the year eventually. And we're going to talk about plenty more AAA games, but first we're going to take a quick break, which is also conveniently a perfect time to donate to one of our charities. Follow us on TikTok or send us a Yappa video comment. Not saying you have to do all that homework while we take a break, but it'd be nice, just do it for us. Do it for you too. We will be right back after this.
IGN Summer of Gaming is presented by The Last of Us Part 2, available June 19th, rated M for mature. By the Army National Guard, working in our communities throughout the COVID pandemic to deliver food, build hospitals, and more. Go to nationalguard.com/esports for more info. And by Fuser, who will be partying with us all summer long.
The next generation of video gaming is on the horizon, and IGN is here to bring you the latest PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series X news and analysis in our new weekly show, Next Gen Console Watch 2020. We'll bring on the experts to discuss and analyze all the latest developments around these new consoles. From frame rates, services, features, peripherals, and even all the new tech jargon, Next Gen Console Watch 2020 will keep you up to speed on everything leading up to the next generation of gaming. Join us every Friday for a new episode.
Not only is IGN the world's biggest media brand for games and entertainment, but we also have a team of some of the world's biggest fans of your favorite franchises. From breaking news and exclusives, never-before-seen looks at movies and games, to reviews, let's plays, and live streams, IGN brings you all the coverage you need, no matter where you are. Whether you're on IGN.com, the IGN app, YouTube, Facebook, or Snapchat, we've always got you covered. IGN, the #1 source for all games and entertainment fans worldwide.
News, Games, and More is IGN's live news show every day of the week that covers all the day's news about games, movies, comics, and of course more. This is our daily live show that takes a rotating cast of IGN talent going over all the latest news of the day while taking live questions and comments from chat. We're live every Monday through Friday at 4 p.m. Pacific, 7 p.m. Eastern, and you can find us on mixer.com/IGN, youtube.com/IGN, and twitch.tv/IGN. See you there.
If you're not following IGN on social media, what are you waiting for? We're constantly updating our feeds to bring you the latest news, gameplay, custom original content, the best user-generated videos and art, memes, and a whole lot more. Be part of the conversation throughout the year. Follow IGN on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, TikTok, and Snapchat.
Welcome back to News, Games, and More. I'm Brian Altano, and with me today is Janet, Jonathan, and Seth, my very good friends, who I don't get to see in person anymore because we live in small rectangles on small screens. It's a wonderful time to be alive. No, speaking of small rectangles and small screens, we actually thought about doing a thing where we figured out how to pass a ball to each other, and that's how this year's going for us. If only there were games to play. No, yeah.
My girlfriend is looking at me like, what the hell are you doing?
We're going to need her help because she's going to have to pretend to catch something off screen. So this will actually take 8 people. Speaking of games to play on screens, that's a transition. Ex-PlayStation executive Shawn Layden has put forward a case to reconsider the scale and scope of the AAA video games industry, stating that the current large-scale offerings are unsustainable for the industry. His quote is, "The problem with that model is it's just not sustainable. I don't think that in the next generation you can take those numbers and multiply them by 2 and think that you can grow. I think the industry as a whole needs to sit back and go, all right, what are we building? What's the audience expectation? What is the best way to get our story across and say what we need to say?" Long story short, Shawn is effectively saying that developers need to consider spending 3 years on a 15-hour experience rather than 5 years on an 80-hour experience, because that will help keep costs in control, maintain standards for retail prices, and also help craft tighter, more compelling content. He pointed to something like The Last of Us Part 2, which is around 10 hours longer than its predecessor, and the longest Naughty Dog game ever made. It's also incredibly technologically advanced. It cost a ton of money to make and a long ass time to develop, and yet it's still retailed for $60. I have a ton of thoughts about this, but I've been talking for a while now. And so, Jonathan, let's start with you. What's your feeling on this quote from Shawn?
I've got no thoughts on it. I think you can take
Okay, excellent. Janet?
No, I don't think he's wrong in the idea that game development is only going to get more expensive as the scope and ambition and the tech continues to also increase in price. And games have been $60 for a few generations now, and that price hasn't gone up for a while. The comparison of The Last of Us 1 to 2, I don't know if it's the best comparison because there also is to take into account The Last of Us 1 had a whole multiplayer section to it that was pretty ambitious and deep. That part 2 doesn't. We know that at some point they were working on multiplayer, and then that wasn't part of the final release at any point. So I don't know if that exact comparison is the best thing here, but I do definitely agree that I love short experiences. I definitely don't mind if developers find ways to introduce a variety of different experiences. I don't think every game needs to cost $60, and I don't think every game needs to be 100 hours. I think there are different creative ways developers can find a sliding scale of experience length and experience price for both the cost of development and also the price for the consumer.
Janet, one of the things I've long said about video games is that it is the only medium in which sort of value is adhered to length. I mean, no one really says you should buy this book; it's really long, or this movie is better than this movie because it's longer than this movie. I think part of that is because of justifiably a defense mechanism from the fact that a lot of games have been infested with predatory business practices, and also that games inherently are expensive. Do you think that plays a specific part of it? We're rolling into next gen now. Do you think games should get more expensive? Do you think the expectations should change a little bit?
I think it's inevitable that at one point games will get more expensive, just because that's just sort of how the progression is. Even just like if you think of how much we're willing to spend on consoles, and how much we need to spend on consoles in order for it to be still not even profitable, but just less of a loss. And especially because we keep wanting more in terms of what is going on technologically. I'm just kind of waiting for the other shoe to drop when they are going to be more expensive. I hope it won't be for a while, because I love the $60 price point. I've gotten so used to it that it would suck to have to pay more, but at the same time, yeah, it doesn't seem sustainable. So I do kind of agree with what he's saying here. It just seems like the math isn't going to work out. At one point, something has to give, and the question is, what will be the thing to give, rather than, will it always stay the same? As far as the price thing, I would love not more than anything in the world, because that's probably an exaggeration, but I'm going to go hyperbole here. I would just love it if people really just stopped equating the price and the time, because that's how you end up with experiences that get padded. That's how you end up with stuff that, we had to kind of sell the price short, because if we didn't market at $40, you're going to be mad if you see that it's not as long as you think it's supposed to be. And I think that really sucks. It's limiting. It is a crummy way to end up talking about games. I love a good sale. I love highlighting stuff. And I am totally really big on, I cannot tell you what your $60 is worth. There were times where I literally couldn't afford a game because I didn't have $60. I relate to that. I understand it. I respect the hell out of it. If you're like, I'm going to wait for a sale because honestly, I am not dying to play it and I am on a budget, and whatever your reasoning is, I totally respect that. And I think that's very valid. However, what I do not respect and what I don't think is as valid is saying something like, this game is not worth this price specifically because of the length. I think that's just a really poor way to look at it. It's a very limiting way to look at it. So I hope that one day we can get away from that. But even like with The Last of Us 2, I saw a comment somewhere that said, because that game's about like 20 or 30 hours ish, 25 is usually what most people play it as. They're like, oh, this game shouldn't be $60. It should be $1 for each hour of gameplay. And I'm like, I'm so mad. I'm just going to close all the tabs and just turn off the whole computer, walk away, because I just can't believe that people still have that sentiment. I think it's so ridiculous.
Yeah, so should Skyrim be $400 then?
Yeah, right.
Right?
Exactly.
Like, where?
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
could you imagine if they were like, Animal Crossing is $250? I'd be like, oh no, and I'd still buy it because I'm an idiot. Crazy K Scorpion on IGN. I promise we'll get to you eventually, Seth. But Crazy K Scorpion really is what it's all about right now. Says Who told Sony to make The Last of Us 2 10 hours longer than the first game? Sure, I'm happy about that, but no one asked for it or expected it. The first game was a huge success at its length. They're completely correct. Like, I think that we sort of, first of all, I think the pacing in this game is awesome. But on the same page, this wasn't like gamers finished The Last of Us and they're like, this is great, but it really needed 10 or 15 more hours of story and combat. I think people were just kind of like, yeah, that was a perfect game. Great job, guys. Oh, you're making another one? And Naughty Dog was like, but what if we added 10 hours more? Like, people weren't begging for that. They imposed that upon themselves, partly to tell their story. So I guess, yeah. What were you going to say, Jonathan?
I was going to say, I don't think they went into the development being like, we need to add 10 more hours on. How do we do that? Like these adding all of that on, if you want to call it that, but like they wanted to tell the story at the scale that they wanted to. And in interviews, Neil Druckmann has been very apparent about like the game kept getting bigger and bigger as they kept figuring out the story they wanted to tell. And so that created this longer development cycle and this longer story. But it's not as if Naughty Dog didn't put out other games in that time. Like, they've been working on this for a while, but Uncharted Lost Legacy came out a couple years ago. There was development going on The Last of Us Part 2 at that time.
Yeah.
It's one of those strange cases where I think Lost Legacy is a good example of what we could be getting in the future, more so from studios like this, where we get sort of smaller self-contained expansions that build off a lot of the tech and the world building work that goes into the larger games in between those bigger, more ambitious adventures.
Yep. I totally agree. Seth, I want to hear what you have to say in just a minute. But first, we are going to take a quick break. So please keep those donations coming. And do not forget, you can follow us on TikTok and search IGN Summer of Gaming hashtag for bonus content. When we're back, we're talking Fortnite movie screenings and so much more. So stay right there. Make sure, donate.ign.com. See you in a minute.
IGN Summer of Gaming is presented by The Last of Us Part 2. Available June 19th. Rated M for mature. By the Army National Guard, working in our communities throughout the COVID pandemic to deliver food, build hospitals, and more. Go to nationalguard.com/esports for more info. And by Fuser, who will be partying with us all summer long.
News, Games, and More is IGN's live news show every day of the week that covers all the day's news about games, movies, comics, and of course more. This is our daily live show that takes a rotating cast of IGN talent, going over all the latest news of the day while taking live questions and comments from chat. We're live every Monday through Friday at 4 p.m. Pacific, 7 p.m. Eastern, and you can find us on mixer.com/IGN, youtube.com/IGN, and twitch.tv/IGN. See you there.
The next generation of video gaming is on the horizon, and IGN is here to bring you the latest PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series X news and analysis in our new weekly show, Next Gen Console Watch 2020. We'll bring on the experts to discuss and analyze all the latest developments around these new consoles. From frame rates, services, features, peripherals, and even all the new tech jargon, Next Gen Console Watch 2020 will keep you up to speed on everything leading up to the next generation of gaming. Join us every Friday for a new episode.
Not only is IGN the world's biggest media brand for games and entertainment, but we also have a team of some of the world's biggest fans of your favorite franchises. From breaking news and exclusives, never-before-seen looks at movies and games, to reviews, let's plays, and live streams, IGN brings you all the coverage you need, no matter where you are. Whether you're on IGN.com, the IGN app, YouTube, Facebook, or Snapchat, we've always got you covered. IGN, the #1 source for all games and entertainment fans worldwide.
If you're not following IGN on social media, what are you waiting for? We're constantly updating our feeds to bring you the latest news, gameplay, custom original content, the best user-generated videos and art, memes, and a whole lot more. Be part of the conversation throughout the year. Follow IGN on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, TikTok, and Snapchat.
Welcome back to News, Games, and More. I'm Brian Altano. With me is Seth, Janet and Jonathan. Right before the break, we were talking about AAA games and sort of the perfect length for them, or at least what ex-PlayStation guy Shawn Layden says they should be. He wanted them to be about 15 hours each, which I think feels pretty safe. We heard from everybody except for Seth, and it would be a great disservice if I didn't let my good friend Seth talk about this. Seth, if you look at Capcom over the last few years, they've knocked out some pretty awesome Resident Evil games on a basically annual basis. Those are short games with I would say like a way to play as two different characters to kind of like pad the length out a little bit. Do you prefer something like that, or would you rather like a game that you can play for 30, 40, 50, 60 hours?
I mean, I personally love open world games where I can just get lost and play like a few hundred hours. But at the same time, that makes it so I very rarely finish video games. So I think what Capcom does is extremely smart. And it's actually something that a few years ago, they set out to do when they were in some tough times. They mentioned during one of their earnings calls that they were going to start remaking games that they had in their library and using their known properties. And then it's a very safe way to go about making games, and of course it's been very successful for them. Resident Evil games are awesome. So I think Mr. Layden, ex PlayStation executive, is completely right about the sustainability of the $60 game AAA costing so much. And then I mean, you think Kingdom Hearts 3 was the best-selling game by a long shot the month that it came out, and like 2 weeks ago it was on sale for $7. So yeah, nobody's going to want to pay more than $60 for a game, and then the games just lose like all value completely. So if you're having to spend $300 million and it takes you like 2.5 years to recoup that $300 million investment, people are going to just stop making games altogether. What I'm excited to see, though, is I think people are going to start figuring out some novel methods like around this problem. I don't know if that means like there's going to be an algorithm that just like generates massive parts of your game for you, but we already sort of see that with DLC and microtransactions. Microtransactions are like 50% of EA's, revenue every quarter now. So
yeah, I mean that's the sort of ugly truth about asking should video games get more expensive, because my gut reaction is yes, because the development costs have risen substantially, and games have been $60 for so long, and literally everything else has become more expensive in our lives. But on the flip side, they are sort of padded with a lot of supplemental ways for the developer to make money these days, or at least a lot of games are. I hadn't actually considered open world games in this conversation, because I think that's a really interesting factor, Seth, in that you wouldn't really want to play an open world game that's only 10 or 15 hours long. I think that would probably look like, it would feel like it's missing something. Nor would a developer want to build a world full of systems like that and then really only let you play it for 10 or 15 hours. And so, that's definitely a big part of the conversation here. Any thoughts from the rest of the panel, Jonathan or Janet, about this before we head on to the next story?
I think we're good to head on.
Okay.
I could just reiterate sort of what I already had on there, but I mean, really quick, one thing I did want to speak to, though, actually, because Jonathan brought this up before the break. He had mentioned the idea of like more games like Lost Legacy. I think one of the issues with that, and you can argue that it's because of how it was presented, but recently with the new Spider-Man game, there was a lot of people upset that it wasn't a proper sequel or what would be considered sort of like a full game. And I think part of that is hung up on the fact that there are like these ideas that players have on what constitutes a full proper game release in a franchise that already has like a set amount of hours that you sort of expect. So I think a big part of that is trying to change player expectations, and maybe that is the introduction of this sort of side story game within franchises. Maybe that's the solution for it, but I do think that currently there is sort of a visceral reaction to these smaller experiences. Studios know this and sort of will say, oh, okay, well, this isn't like, the game you're expecting, but it's like a little side game, even though it's a pretty substantial length. So I think that's something that will be an uphill battle for a while.
No, that's a really good point. And also, I mean, Lost Legacy could not have been possible without all of the strenuous development and crunch that went into Uncharted 4. That's a game that was basically running off of the same engine and using similar assets. I do think that in general, I've seen a lot of people get specifically irate at a developer when they reuse like a tree or a mountain. And I think that, like, if we do want games to come out quicker, maybe we have to get a little bit more lenient about seeing the same tree twice. I'll be honest with you, like, if I walked on, if you swapped half of the trees out on my street with the same tree, I might not notice. And I think most people wouldn't notice, but I know in video games people latch onto that because there's that perceived value of hoping that they're buying something that brand new work went into. So I sort of understand it. Like the Resident Evil games specifically are interesting because those 2 and 3 are built on the existing skeletal frames of games that had significant development cycles decades ago. And so, like, we're all giving them a round of applause for knocking out these 2 games in a row over 2 years, but they're also based off of structures that existed already. And I think if they were to go on and do Code Veronica and then Resident Evil 4, you're looking at they're basically going through the well of everything that they've had already. But if you were to ask them to make a brand new Resident Evil game on that engine, even with the same assets, I don't think you'd be able to knock it out in a year.
I think you're
just
right
some
on
stuff
that.
to chew on. We are going to take a very quick break. Remember, donate.ign.com. Help us support those 2 charities. Check us out on TikTok. Leave us a yap and leave a comment on any of your favorite video platforms, and we'll try to get to it today. We'll be right back right after this.
IGN Summer of Gaming is presented by The Last of Us Part 2. Available June 19th. Rated M for mature. By the Army National Guard, working in our communities throughout the COVID pandemic to deliver food, build hospitals, and more. Go to nationalguard.com/esports for more info. And by Fuser, who will be partying with us all summer long.
The next generation of video gaming is on the horizon, and IGN is here to bring you the latest PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series X news and analysis in our new weekly show, Next Gen Console Watch 2020. We'll bring on the experts to discuss and analyze all the latest developments around these new consoles. From frame rates, services, features, peripherals, and even all the new tech jargon, Next Gen Console Watch 2020 will keep you up to speed on everything leading up to the next generation of gaming. Join us every Friday for a new episode.
Not only is IGN the world's biggest media brand for games and entertainment, but we also have a team of some of the world's biggest fans of your favorite franchises. From breaking news and exclusives, never-before-seen looks at movies and games, to reviews, let's plays, and live streams, IGN brings you all the coverage you need, no matter where you are. IGN, the #1 source for all games and entertainment fans worldwide.
Everybody loves watching a speedrun of their favorite game. But what if you got the opportunity to peek into the minds of the developers while they watch their games getting completely wrecked? That's exactly what happens in every episode of Game Devs React to speedruns.
You can do that. Oh my god!
We invite you to ride along with the developers as they react to, question, and enjoy some of the most skilled players exploiting and speeding through a game it took years of their life to create. Join us every Saturday for a new episode.
Hey there! If you have opinions on games, movies, TV, or other weird stuff on the internet, you can take part in our new show, Power Ranking, where you can vote on all your favorite things on the internet. Do it now! Do it! Just go! Vote! Go vote!
News, games, and more is IGN's live news show every day of the week that covers all the day's news about games, movies, comics, and of course more. This is our daily live show that takes a rotating cast of IGN talent, going over all the latest news of the day while taking live questions and comments from chat. We're live every Monday through Friday at 4 p.m. Pacific, 7 p.m. Eastern. See you there.
And we are back with more news, games, and more. Now, do you like Christopher Nolan? Well, if you do, you're part of the IGN audience that statistics say, yes, you do. Do you like Fortnite? Well, if you're part of the IGN audience, statistics say yes, but when asked in private, you say no, that's a baby game. Well, then you're sure to have mixed feelings about this next story because they are showing Christopher Nolan movies in Fortnite. This is, again, one of those sentences I didn't think I would ever be saying, and I still don't fully understand. Depending on what country you live in, Fortnite will be showing one of 3 different Christopher Nolan films: Inception, Batman Begins, or The Prestige. For movie night at Party Royal's big screen, the US will be able to watch Inception at June 26th at 5 a.m. Pacific.
All right.
Yes.
Perfect movie time.
Set those alarms.
What? Okay, hold on. Yeah, and a bunch of other times. In the UK, The Prestige will air on June 26th at 5 p.m., a normal, logical time to watch a movie about magicians. Is this weird? I think this is weird. I think the timing is weird. Yes, it's very weird.
I don't think it's that
There's
weird.
like a million better ways to watch these movies. Like literally
Why would
any
you
other way
choose
that you can
any
watch
of
these
them?
movies.
And it's
Wait,
free and it's not illegal. Okay, I'm so excited about this. I think this is awesome. That's why I was like jonesing to get to this segment specifically. I think that's so cool. Like my only question is like, will I be able to sort of like will I be only watching it from like where my like the third person of my avatar where I can see like that's a little bit unideal to watch a movie because the screen would be a lot smaller. Like I'm not sure how
Yeah.
they're doing that or if they're doing it like did any of you guys go to the Travis Scott concert inside of Fortnite?
No, but I
No.
watched videos of it. It looked amazing.
It was awesome. So like I didn't watch any videos of it before going into it, and it like people might be like, oh, da, 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 like whatever Fortnite, but like it was quite literally like one of the most unique experiences I've had inside a video game. It just felt like a totally unique and bizarre and fun and immersive moment. The drawback to a movie is that it's not going to really have any of those things. So obviously the pool is not there as much, but I love that Fortnite is just so gigantic that they're just doing all this crazy stuff in it. And like the line between Fortnite as a virtual world and real life is blurring in a way that's a little bit Black Mirror-y, but I'm okay with it. Like I'm okay with it. Set your alarms, 5 a.m. Inception.
5 a.m. I don't want to be a wet sock here, but I feel like there is a slight shift in differences in human behavior when, I don't know, attending a Travis Scott concert and watching the Christopher Nolan's heady magician film. Like, when you sit down and watch a movie, they say, please be quiet. There's like they get mad. Everyone's yelling at you. You know, you have to shut off your phones and stuff like that. At a concert, it's phone out the entire time. Like there's and so like yes, this movie is free, and yes, we've all been stuck inside so long that we are totally starved for the theater experience. But is the theater experience, even if it's free, supposed to feel like watching a movie with a bunch of action figures gyrating in front of it?
T-posing
I feel like
and
you just gotta know what that looks like though. Like I get maybe not
That's
staying
true.
for the full film, but like I gotta see what this is. It also kind of weirdly reminds me. Do any of you guys have Oculus Quest or any of those like headsets?
Yeah.
Okay.
Just
So
got
like
one
I don't
today,
know, Brian,
actually,
if okay, congratulations. That's so awesome. Brian, I don't know if you've done any of the like VR events where you can like sit inside a theater in VR and look at a live cam of like a bird at like a zoo. Like, have you done any of those? Is it just me?
No,
It might be just
that
me.
sounds great.
That sounds awesome.
Yeah, like and it's not as cool as like when I signed up for those events. I was like, well, you just click into it. It's like tied to Facebook. I was like, I was hoping it'd be like I kind of wanted more from it because I wanted a more like VR-y, like I want to be in like the bird cage or something, stuff I can't do in real life because you get arrested if you climb over the cages in the zoo.
The Birdcage is a different movie, and it's actually coming to Apex Legends. I'm sorry, that was such a bad joke.
It
That's
kind
for
of
you,
reminds me of
Seth.
that where it's not as good as real life and it feels weird, but like what's trippy about those events too is you can turn like your mic on and like turn in VR and talk to someone's avatar and it's actually them and it's like weird, but I like this because it's so bizarre. Is it good? It doesn't matter if it's good. It's weird and I'm into it.
I like that actually. Yeah.
Fair enough. Fair enough. I did want to talk about Overcooked very quickly because Overcooked 2's new DLC looks hilarious. I'm a gigantic fan of Overcooked myself. I know many of you are here at IGN. It's called Suns Out, Buns Out. It's out on July 5th for Steam, and then shortly afterwards for consoles. I got to play this with Max Scoville a little bit, and it was actually on our live show today. It's more Overcooked, which is never, ever a problem. He and I basically worked in unison at a hot dog restaurant during a parade where parade floats traveled between our two islands, and we had to cross them while holding hot dogs. There's a lot of just horrible conversations happen there. We had what we referred to as the on deck dog zone, which was just a bench where we kept our dogs. I actually have to. I had to pop up and sort of realize that this is Overcooked 2 has continually gotten new DLC. Are you guys going to dip back in and try this game again?
I would want to. I'm still actually working my way through Overcooked 1, and the reason I haven't kept playing is because I don't live with anyone that wants to play with me because my boyfriend doesn't like Overcooked. He doesn't like how the controls are like a little bit loosey. But
oh, that's a bummer.
That's what makes it fun. Yeah, so that's fine. I'll just sit there and not finish it because it's hard to solo campaign that. I do want to dip back in at some point, but I kind of have to find like the right way to go about playing that. But yeah, Overcooked is awesome. I love Overcooked.
Jonathan, I know you play a ton of co-op games at home. How do you feel about this one? Are you gonna jump back in, chop up some hot dogs? You actually have to chop hot dog buns. You know how disturbing that is to see? It makes no sense, but you do it.
It's probably adorable though with the chefs in the game, so I'm okay with that. Yeah, no, I love Overcooked. I first started playing it in the IGN office a few years ago, and it was like one of the best co-op experiences I've ever had. So we've played a bunch of Overcooked 2 at home, and I actually just got the DLC on the older DLC on sale like a month or two ago. So I definitely want to jump back into this. We actually got pretty far into the campaign, and then there was just like one level that we couldn't beat, and when you just keep like hitting your head against the wall, like how do we perfect, because we don't go past a level if we don't get 3 stars, and so we just were at that barrier of not being able to get 3 stars, and so we put it down for a bit. But I'm excited to jump back in and see how this new DLC is.
Yeah, me too. I'm definitely excited to keep playing more of it. Well, until then, you can figure out how to make the perfect hot dog at home. I'm sure you have plenty of spare time. Don't chop the bun into smithereens. Don't do that. And that seems like one of those like viral cooking videos gone awry. That is all for today's episode. Thank you so much to Janet, Jonathan, and Seth. IGN Summer of Gaming continues tomorrow with Night City Wire, a showcase full of fresh Cyberpunk 2077 info straight from developers CD Projekt Red. You won't want to miss that. We've been talking about gigantic AAA games all day here, and that's one of the biggest ones of the year. Keeps getting delayed, but I have hope. Be sure to check out IGN.com. Remember, donate.ign.com. Keep those charities going. And to everyone who contributed to our charities today, don't forget to follow us on TikTok, and we will catch you tomorrow. Thank you so much for watching, and have a wonderful evening.
IGN Summer of Gaming is presented by The Last of Us Part 2, available June 19th, rated M for mature. By the Army National Guard, working in our communities throughout the COVID pandemic to deliver food, build hospitals, and more. Go to nationalguard.com/esports for more info. And by Fuser, who will be partying with us all summer long.
The next generation of video gaming is on the horizon, and IGN is here to bring you the latest PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series X news and analysis in our new weekly show, Next Gen Console Watch 2020. We'll bring on the experts to discuss and analyze all the latest developments around these new consoles. From frame rates, services, features, peripherals, and even all the new tech jargon, Next Gen Console Watch 2020 will keep you up to speed on everything leading up to the next generation of gaming. Join us every Friday for a new episode.
Not only is IGN the world's biggest media brand for games and entertainment, but we also have a team of some of the world's biggest fans of your favorite franchises. From breaking news and exclusives, never-before-seen looks at movies and games, to reviews, let's plays, and live streams, IGN brings you all the coverage you need, no matter where you are. Whether you're on IGN.com, the IGN app, YouTube, Facebook, or Snapchat, we've always got you covered. IGN, the #1 source for all games and entertainment fans worldwide.
News, Games, and More is IGN's live news show every day of the week that covers all the day's news about games, movies, comics, and of course more. This is our daily live show that takes a rotating cast of IGN talent, going over all the latest news of the day while taking live questions and comments from chat. We're live every Monday through Friday at 4 p.m. Pacific, 7 p.m. Eastern, and you can find us on mixer.com/IGN, youtube.com/IGN, and twitch.tv/IGN. See you there.
If you're not following IGN on social media, what are you waiting for? We're constantly updating our feeds to bring you the latest news, gameplay, custom original content, the best user-generated videos and art, memes, and a whole lot more. Be part of the conversation throughout the year. Follow IGN on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, TikTok, and Snapchat.